Uh, but it was 24/7. You didn't know because we were trying to out guerrilla the guerrillas. So you didn't know. Sometimes it was only 5 or 6 of us out there in little squads. We separate from the company, and the platoon separate from the company, and then the platoon would separate into squads. So we're out there, like men hunting men. Okay, so 24/7. No, we didn't fight all the time, but you don't know because you walk in point. You can run in. I ran into them face to face a few times. They have AKs. They don't take prisoners. They'll do some horrible things to you, and vice versa. Okay, I didn't do that. I didn't believe in torture, but other people did. Man, we lost like right there in a small area because they came out of foxholes, out of spider holes. I mean, there might have been 6 or 7 of them. I don't know, but everything just turns like 2D. You go into trauma. You hear, but you don't really hear. They're more like echoes, and your mind speeds up so much for your survival that everything slows down. It seems counterintuitive, but your mind is working so fast that you're seeing everything slow so you can react faster. But it's real strange. It's really strange experience. And so, yeah, that one was pretty bad. And then later on, seeing guys, getting their legs blown off, getting their arm blown off. I got my eye knocked out. I don't think I ever felt so free in my life as I did out in the jungle. Because it didn't matter who your daddy was, what you did back in they call it back in the world. See, that wasn't the world. It would say, when I get back to the world. That wasn't the world. Okay, so that was a different world. So anyway, so by that time I had to say, you know what? I'm not walking point anymore. I was basically becoming the platoon sergeant. From that, the statistics are they can be manipulated and depends on who gathers them. But the statistics, from what I've read, like 20% of the casualties in Vietnam were by friendly fire, so-called. There's no such thing as friendly fire, but our own fire and disease. Almost 1/5 of the casualties were, according to some statistics, were by your own troops or your own artillery or your own bombs. Or actually, one platoon that I wasn't in that platoon, but they told me, another company, some Chicano guys told me that they got in a firefight because in their squad, all they spoke was Spanish. They were Tejanos and a couple of Puerto Ricans, and all they spoke was Spanish, and they were speaking in Spanish very low, and another squad didn't know where they were, and they got in a firefight because the other squad heard them. There was all English speakers, mostly white guys, and they heard them speaking Spanish through the bush. And they thought it was Vietnamese, so they started firing them up. So they got in a firefight. I think a couple of guys got killed. They killed each other until they found out, hey, wait a minute, we're GIs, man. So yeah, that happens. A lot of stuff could happen like that too, but not necessarily. That was very rare. I mean, the Spanish part, but it was not rare. That rare that you would, because you couldn't see, and you would have. Sometimes they would fight each other. Not often, but often enough. I decided not to walk point anymore, and I said, "What are my options? Should I quit fighting? And if I quit fighting, they put me in prison. I don't want to go to prison. Maybe I should walk home. No, there's an ocean. Maybe I would have walked home. I don't know. I could walk a lot in those days. And so I just decided to stick it out and just not walk point. But that day that I got hurt, we came up to the hill. It was like July, the end of July sometime. I don't even want to think about the date anymore. And so they told us, hey, we had walked up to the hill where our fire base was out in the jungle. And they said, you guys are going to go help a company that got ambushed. And I said, oh no, we're going to get it. Because they're going to send 30 guys to go help a company, which is about 120 guys. And they got the shit knocked out of them. And we're going to go help them. And half our platoon is new because the other guys had gotten wounded and are leaving home, going home for home. And I said, oh no. And then we got a new lieutenant, and he had dropped out of the seminary, and he had dropped out of the seminary, so he was wanted to be a priest. So I said, oh no, this guy's not going to make it here, man, in terms of being our lieutenant. And then the other guy before him was even just as bad. He was like a Jewish guy from New York that had this. He was like, he could have been related to Woody Allen in that personality. I'm not trying to stereotype him, but he had that certain kind of wacky, crazy personality, just like Woody Allen type of guy. And he lost his leg over there too, Lieutenant Shack. I was with him when he did, when he lost. But anyway, so I just didn't. I said, oh no. So I walked the point again. They choppered us out late in the afternoon, about 6 o'clock in the evening. 7 o'clock, it was gonna get dark in an hour or two. And yeah, they dropped us off over there. And then we didn't know the terrain. They always sent us to new terrain. So we didn't know the terrain. I didn't know the terrain. Okay, that's also very bad for us if you're on that side. And then we ran into the enemy, and we got in a firefight, and it was pretty intense there for a while. And then someone gave me an M79 grenade launcher, and I shot it down at the enemy. And then some other grenades exploded and things going down. But when I shot that grenade launcher, something hit me too, the grenade. I don't know if it was that grenade or another grenade, but it hit me right here in the eye, bullseye. Boom, it hit me. Oh, that hurt. Can you imagine somebody putting an ice pick in your eye? Like, oh, shit. So I went down. And then I couldn't feel my body anymore. I couldn't feel my body, so I was just thinking. And I was still religious at the time. I was a Catholic. And I began to pray to God. I couldn't think. All I could do was think. Everything was black. I couldn't feel my body. And the first thing I thought was, you should be dead. You should be dead. You got shot with an AK-47, because I don't really, to this day, don't know exactly what happened, what hit me, because there was so much shit going on. And so I went down and I prayed to God. I said, God, if you let me live, I promise I'll pick cotton free the rest of my life. And I saw myself picking cotton. I was making labor negotiations with God. So, and then I started, but I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel my body. And then I started, no, at first I thought I got shot with an AK-47. You should be dead. I said, but you're thinking. So that's when I started thinking about God. And then the corpsman, the medic, I trusted him. He kept talking to me. And I started coming to. And I started thinking about my mother. And then the pain, that's when I started feeling my body again. And the pain was really excruciating. So, after I started thinking about my mom, guess what really brought me through? I started thinking about enchiladas. Seriously, there is something to comfort food, believe it or not. Okay, so I started thinking about that, and that's when I came to. Oh man, it hurt. And they were still shooting at us. And what happens is they don't give you morphine for head wounds. And so the medic patched this eye up, right? Because I got punctured. I shoot left-handed, so I got that scar right up here. And it busted all my eye up. And the shrapnel was still in there. And then, but since your eyes move in pairs, they had to patch this eye up. So I was blind. because your eyes move in pairs. And when this one would move, this one would move, and the shrapnel would go in harder. Oh man, that hurt. Okay, so I was blind, so that was an excruciating night, and they kept firing at us and stuff, and I couldn't defend myself. I was blind. I was throwing up. I even sniveled a little bit, I must admit. Actually, I don't want to see the guys who were with me at that time because I sniveled. I'm still ashamed of that 52 years later. And but I slept for about an hour, and then I didn't feel the pain anymore. And the enemy took off. I don't know why. And I walked about 2 miles. They took the patch off my good eye so I could see. It didn't hurt anymore. So I walked, and then we went to a place where there was a deep jungle. They didn't want to, helicopters didn't want to land because they were afraid that they were going to get shot at. So they brought in a jungle, and they couldn't. There was the jungle was too thick anyway. So they brought in a cable with a jacket. They pull you up. A helicopter with a cable. Sure. Yeah, they pulled me up. And as they were pulling me up, the crank or the cable, the machinery froze, so I was just hanging there. Okay, man, I never gonna get out of here. And then they started flying away with me hanging there, man, because they were shooting at us. Okay, so yeah, I made it back though, man. Yeah, and then. Anyway, then they took my eye out as soon as I got to the hospital. And then I got malaria the next day. That kicked my butt too. So, yeah.